Joining us now on the John Fredericks Radio Network, 7th District Congressman Dr. Dave Brat. Dr. Brat, good to have you, man.
Hey, good to be on, John. Get that bus over. We're having a big blowout with Congresswoman Marsha Blackburn this Saturday in Midlothian at the Koger Center at 3:30. So I don't know if you can make it from there to Roanoke, but we're going to try to get out the vote in the 7th District so we can get Trump in, and we got to offset Fairfax County a little bit. And we know what's coming up there.
I wanted to do that. In fact, that when we went over the schedule, that was one of the things, but we can't get there, do that, and then get to Roanoke.
Yeah,
but the next time you got an event, just have your people email me, and I'll get it worked out. No question about it, because that would have been fabulous. Anybody wants to check your rally out with Marsha Blackburn from Tennessee, Congresswoman? When is that again, Dave?
Yeah, this Saturday, 3:30 at the Koger Center in Chesterfield, Midlothian.
All right, so you want to check that out and just go to, what is that on your website, Dave?
Yeah, it'll be on my Facebook and website, DaveBrat.com.
DaveBrat.com, that's all you have to do. All right, Dr. Brat, let's get down to business. Rumor has it that the ability to sue the Saudis over 9/11, this could be the first and only time Congress overrides a Barack Obama veto. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's great news. There's a couple Senate guys hiding under their desk, even on our side. I do not understand it at all, but yeah, it's great news. I mean, it's just unbelievable. You got a president that's going to veto this thing and hopefully override in the House and the Senate right before the election. So it's just great news.
I tell you what, it's going to be the only time that's ever happened. It's the absolute right thing to do, and maybe this is a sign of things to come. You know, we've got a group of senators now. Word has leaked out to us that if this is almost unbelievable, that if Trump wins the election, that they're going to attempt to have a confirmation vote on Justice Garland that Barack Obama has nominated. In your wildest dreams, could you even envision that happening?
Yeah, I can. I mean, unfortunately, it is unbelievable. We have the House by a big majority and the Senate, and Harry Reid is running the entire budget of the United States almost this week. Look at the list of issues that we're debating. Right, we're out of regular order, so I'm on the budget committee. We're not empowered to be in the process. And we're debating this week for inclusion in the Republican budget, the Export-Import Bank, Zika funding, Flint, Michigan water, Louisiana flooding, Puerto Rico Planned Parenthood, ICANN, criminal justice reform, etc. I mean, it's unbelievable. And then there's none of the Republican riders are even being discussed. Immigration enforcement, vetting, fiscal responsibility, veterans, it's just unbelievable what the Senate is doing to us.
And like you said last week, right, we just stand around because Mitch McConnell puts his hands up and says, well, I can't get the 60 votes, therefore I don't have the power to do anything. What he doesn't tell people is that he could rescind that man-made rule tomorrow and then it wouldn't even matter, but they just hide behind that so they don't have to be accountable for anything. But the bottom line is a lot of these Republicans in the Senate are in favor of all this stuff. I mean, they're in favor of it.
That's the point. You're right. I mean, it's not like after 6 years, right? We've done the same thing 6 years in a row. So you got to conclude this thing is orchestrated. And Mitch, just wants to dole out $4 trillion. Well, so does everybody else, right? I mean, that's the problem up here. And our side isn't blocking. Paul Ryan says he wants to do minibuses, but it really doesn't matter because McConnell and everyone said, and Pelosi and Reid said, you can try to do minibuses all day and we'll block it. And then you got the government shutdown debate at the end, which comes up right now, right, because we're not in regular order. And so I hope the folks out there will support me and the other House Freedom Caucus guys. The one thing we fought for was regular order, so this can't happen. And the budget bill contains all the policy that the conservatives want to see, and we're getting decimated again.
Well, the only thing you got regular order on was impeachment proceedings for the Internal Revenue Commissioner, Kaskakian, and you only got that because you threatened to just have a vote on impeachment, and Ryan was afraid it would pass.
Right, and so the only time our leadership is in favor of regular order is when it delays what conservatives want, right? So that was a delay blocking move on Koskinen. And so we got the hearing under oath, but we're not going to move forward with it if our leadership has any say on it.
Unbelievable. Duck, I want to get your take on the Charlotte situation. And I know you're not directly involved in it, but just as an observer, and I did read your book. I've been a fan of yours for some time, and you always speak truth to power. I can't figure out. Help me understand, what is Black Lives Matter rioting about right now in Charlotte?
Yeah, well, that's just subgroup, right? Some of these radical groups that are funded out of the George Soros pot of money and just some confused people. And I'll just contrast that with, I was in the prison in Chesterfield the other day with Sheriff Carl Leonard, who's got a nationally known program right now. I was in the jail with 40 heroin addicts who have been convicted of serious crimes. And these guys, you should have heard these guys on their what they want to see out of education and what they want to see out of the government. And they told me, you got to get the Bible back in the classroom and religion back in the classroom so my kids and grandkids don't end up like me, right? And they said, I don't have any school counselor who cares about me as a person. All they do is talk about SOL test scores and education. I was never taught about what's good for me and my vision for a life or what I'm going to do in business or anything. So these guys, just common sense, and the Democrat policy in education is holding back an entire generation from being successful. And then you end up with this racial tension when your school system, which is funded, right? We fully fund these schools, $12,000 per person per year for 13 years. And we're teaching them about isosceles triangles, but we're not giving them any hope. And some of the guys said, I never got ethics. I was never taught what was good versus bad in life in the public school system. And so it's just an indictment, right? It's like from the mouth of babes. These guys have just been decimated. Their lives are just crushed, and they only know to speak the truth now. They're having spiritual awakenings because they're looking for some hope. And so that there's some good news out there to contrast against this racial tension, but we got to get some policies in this country that make sense for everybody.
And so what you're saying is, because you look at the Charlotte riots, allegedly a black officer killed a black male. The cops are saying that he had a gun. The others are saying he did have a gun. He had a book. But I don't know what this has to do. And what they're saying is it's just institutional racism. That's what Obama's saying, and that's what Hillary Clinton is basically inferring. But, I mean, if you're a police officer now and somebody's coming at you with something, what do they expect him to do? Stand there?
Right. Yeah, no, I mean, and the details don't matter, right? You have a culture which is just boiling over. And so it doesn't matter. No, it's not about rationality. There is institutional racism. And if Obama and Hillary want to talk about institutionalized racism, I just mentioned the source of it. It's their own policies. That's where the institutional racism is, right? When you don't tell people what is ethically good and bad, right? If you cannot even define what a morally good life is anymore, and you block the Bible and you block the Judeo-Christian tradition and you block the Baptist church, which is fundamental in the African-American community, from being the voice of power, and the only hope you give is a broken federal system of government, right? I mean, government has never been – I hope everyone agrees with me, right, that the federal government is not the educator of your child on these moral issues. And so that's what's at stake, right? Martin Luther King, I wrote in my book, right, is kind of the end of the Western line. After him, we don't have any nationally prominent philosophers or theologians out there promoting the Judeo-Christian tradition in the African-American community, in the across the board in education.
You know, I remember when you were first running for Congress, I was reading one of the papers that you had written, trying to get to know you a little better at Randolph-Macon. And one of the things that struck me, because I have an advanced degree in economics, not a PhD, obviously, like you have, but one of the things that you said that really stuck with me that I had never heard, and you said, markets are good when people are good. Right. And I never really heard anybody say that. And I got to thinking about it. And, you know, you're really right, because you look at capitalism and you look at free markets, and, you know, the system is designed for God-fearing people that ethically want to do the right thing, right?
No, that's absolutely right. I mean, economists don't do a good job on this, right? But a supply curve is just a bunch of business guys.
Mm-hmm.
And a demand curve is just a bunch of us, consumers, right? And so that's all people. And we abstract away from that, and so we never do the ethics. And then John Adams had the quote you just said, right? Our republic was also designed only for morally good people. You can only have a republic with democratic actors that you trust, right, to be out there decentralized doing things if they're morally good. And in school, I'm dead serious, right? I mean, if you want to really get bored off your gourd, you can go back to the Greeks and the Homeric period. And the term good back then meant if you performed your function well. So a king could be morally abhorrent, right? In the movie with Brad Pitt, when he's Achilles, that the king rapes the slave girl Briseis, and the king is still called morally good because he performs his function as a king well, even though he's morally abhorrent. And so the term good, it's up for debate. And if your society doesn't get it right, what is good and what's morally bad, your civilization will collapse. And we're on our road to decline right now, so we got to turn this thing around. And the Judeo-Christian tradition has been the core, foundational piece for this country for 400 years. Harvard, all the great universities were founded by the Puritans. Right today, we mock the Puritans, but Harvard's motto in 1640 was truth for Christ and church. I don't think that's Harvard's motto anymore. That's a dry joke.
Right. I don't think so. Dr. Brat, let's get to politics, the debate Monday night. I'm of the opinion that right now what Trump has to do is hold his own, be presidential. I think if he can debate her to a draw and people can envision him as their president, I think he's going to win on November 8th. Am I right?
Yeah, I think you got it right. She's defined herself into a corner, right? She's called him every deplorable name under the sun, and so there's a very low hurdle, and all he has to do is walk over that low hurdle and appear presidential and put forth his economic policies he's stated, his immigration policies, his trade policies, and just overcome that low hurdle she's set up that, he's deplorable, and everybody, we all that follow him, we're all deplorable. And if he outshines that low expectation, he's the winner. And he's going to be the winner regardless. I think he'll knock it out of the park.
I think he's going to do very well. Yeah, I got to tell you, Dr. Brat, I went to the first 6 or 7 Republican debates from Cleveland to Simi Valley to Milwaukee. I don't even remember where all of them were. And I'm a Trump supporter, obviously, so there's some bias here. But I thought he won every debate that I was at. So I think he's really underestimated. He's very quick on his feet. He knows his issues. I don't think he's going to get rattled. I think he's going to do real, real well.
Yeah, well, and, I mean, if you look at the issues that are going to be debated, the economy's growing at 1%. Hillary was the head of our foreign policy. We forget this, right? She was in charge of the Middle East when it started imploding. And so she can't run on economics. She can't run on fiscal responsibility. She cannot run on her State Department tenure. She had no outcomes as senator. And we got a big government that's out of control. Education in the inner cities is out of control. And so that's why she's left and resorting to name-calling, that she cannot plausibly win on policy when their side has just failed across the board. And the radical left agenda is just done. And so I hope our Democratic friends, I've got neighbors that are good Democrats, I hope they're coming over to our side. I think they're going to. And when it comes to small business, most everyone out there listening is in small business. And look at your Democrat senators in Virginia. They got small business scores of 30 or 17. Kane has a 17 out of 100 a year ago as a small business score. And so you small business people listening out there, how do you like Obamacare? How do you like all the regulatory overhang? How do you like your corporate tax rates? Right? I think you can do better. And so Trump just needs to stay on the basics, and it's an easy home run.
You like his tax plan?
Oh, yeah. He's got great guy. He's got Larry Kudlow, I mean, the biggest thing is just the announcement that we're going to do that corporate tax rate reduction. There's $2 trillion overseas, right? That if we get that back here, then you get a little breathing room, right? And then everybody gets their optimism back, and you got morning in America again. And so he's got Larry Kudlow, Steve Moore from the Wall Street Journal, Art Laffer, all the optimistic guys that are going to restore some faith in the U.S. again.
Do you think that, one of the issues is we got a $20 trillion debt? I've only got a minute, but what Trump is saying is that if we cut these taxes like he's recommended, that we can get growth up to 3.8, 3.5, almost 4%, and then that'll bring the deficit down. Is that reality, or is that a pipe dream?
Yeah, I mean, the recovery out of the Barrow just had a piece on it in the Wall Street Journal yesterday. If you have a severe contraction, you get a severe positive recovery. Normally, we haven't had that. So 4% growth is not something out of bounds, but it will reduce the deficit. But getting that debt down is another story. That's a heavier lift.
Right. Well, we're going to have to figure that out. We're out of time. I want to thank Dr. Dave Brat for being with us. More information, you can go to davebrat.com, davebrat.com, Congressman, 7th District, Republican, Virginia. Thanks for being with us, sir. It's always a pleasure to have you on.
Hey,
Thank
John,
you so
you did
much.
a great job. Keep fighting for the country. Thank you.